just want to go over a couple things that I think are really important to remember. And that is that, the last couple days, we've basically just been going through the motions with, hey, this is what a final expense plan is. Here's what it covers. This is who wants it. Here's how you use the dialer. Here's how you use the quoting tool. This part of it absolutely can be taught. There's a lot of training that can go on here, and there's a lot of tools that you can take from me and implement. A huge part of your success in sales, guys, is not something that I'm going to be able to teach you. It's something that you have to build within yourself, and that's confidence. Confidence is the number one thing you need in order to be successful in sales. If you are not confident about what you're saying, and that confidence isn't translated over to the phone to this person, it doesn't matter what you're selling. You're going to miss out on sales. I don't know how many of you guys have been in a sales office before, but you'll notice that certain people in a sales office, all of a sudden they'll get hot, right? And like they're closing deal after deal after deal, whatever the sale is, whether it's life insurance or widgets, they get hot and they start closing a lot of deals. And that's because of the fact that when somebody starts to consistently get sales, they start to have this expectation and this confidence that deals are going to close. And, I don't know, those of you that believe in the law of attraction, there's a lot of truth to it. Some of it can be seen as a little bit of fantasy, but I think that what I took away from the law of attraction is just that attitude translates. So whatever your attitude is, you're going to attract people that have that similar type of mindset and attitude, and it's going to become contagious. So if you're in a good mood and you're happy and you're pitching with a purpose and you're going over benefits with people and you're excited about it, that energy can be contagious, and the people on the other side of the phone are going to buy in at a higher rate than somebody who maybe sounds, depressed and unhappy, and every single time they talk to somebody they can never afford it and they never buy, and that down energy can really hurt your sales. So I would highly recommend to any of you that don't, motivational videos are so valuable, man, because they keep your mindset and they keep your mental health strong. Sales is highs and lows. It's peaks and valleys. I can't tell you how many agents I talk to, and I'll talk to them today, and man, they just closed a deal and they are the happiest person that I speak to all day long. They're doing cartwheels and backflips and so forth. And then, I talked to them 2 days later, and, the last couple of conversations didn't go their way. And now they're kind of down and they're out and they're feeling defeated. And, it's my job there sometimes to remind them to keep their eye on the prize, and that, they have to keep their energy level up, and you got to stay positive. You have to continue to believe and have confidence that you're going to make sales. Okay. So definitely a homework assignment from here. Start working on your mental health. If it's not motivational videos, it's something else. Some people like to go to the gym, every single morning before they work. They like to go to Dean. I see you rolling your eyes there a little bit, but some people like to go to the gym. Whatever your process is, for me, it always has been and probably always will continue to be. Listening to my favorite motivational speakers. There's just some people out there that have some fantastic stories. That of obstacles they've overcome and tools and things that they've used to keep their mental health strong. There's other things too, talking to family members, focusing on the things that are making you do this job. Why are you doing this job? Obviously it's to make money, but what do you need money for? Remind yourself of those things. What specifically? Have goals. Definitely people that have goals are generally more successful. So figure out what your goals are. If you need help setting those goals, I'd be happy to have that conversation with you. But again, the purpose of this call is to get into the script, but I wanted to take a minute or two to talk about this because, sales, regardless of what we're selling here, it's going to require a certain level of magic to get people to follow us down a path. And that magic, guys, it's confidence. It's believing that you are going to offer a product that this person is going to want and afford, and that you have something important to say. And you need to, every single word that you use on the phone with these people, it's like being on stage. We're on the phone, but you're giving a presentation. And remember that they are listening to what you're saying. And a lot of times it's not always what you're saying, but how you're saying it. So try to always have that positive mindset going in. Try to let that, scream across the phone. You don't have to be, who's that guy that used to do the infomercials for OxyClean that passed away? I can't remember what his name is, but you don't have to be that guy by any means. You want to be professional, and you don't want to necessarily sound like an infomercial, but excited, happy to speak to these people, good energy over the phone. With that being said, let's jump in here. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to go over where you're going to get information. And this should look familiar for some of you. This is that final expense quick reference sheet. Remember that the tab quoting tool, this is how you'll get to your insurance toolkit. The Ringy dialer, this is how you log in. It's a demo video here. Another demo video here for the insurance toolkit if you need additional information on that. But today we're going to be looking at the sales script tabs. So there's an inbound pitch, there's an outbound pitch, and then there's your rebuttals. So inbound pitch, that would be somebody's calling in as opposed to you calling out to them. The script is almost identical, just basically the introduction is going to be a little bit different. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at the outbound script. So I'm going to share this tab now. Okay, so this is what the outbound pitch is going to look like. So you can have this opened up on a monitor, and so that you're able to go through this. Best case scenario, I know this won't be possible for all of you, but best case scenario, you would have two monitors. One monitor would be this, and then another monitor would be this. So that you can realistically be looking at your script on one page or on one screen, and then looking at your quoting tool on the other, and then kind of going back and forth. Now, if you can't do that, not the end of the world. You can literally just go from one tab to the other. But I'll tell you, for me, I like having two screens. So I've got my script right here in front of me that I can just kind of glance over at as I need it. And then over here on the right, as they're giving me information that you're going to see I'm going to collect here in a second, I'm typing it into that quoting tool. That's the most efficient way to do it. Again, if that's not an option for you, you may want to consider having a sheet of paper or something along those lines so that you can be writing stuff down as they're giving it to you. And then when you find a good pause point, switching over to this other tab, and then just quickly, scribing in here the information. Okay. All right. So coming back to the script, I'm gonna basically go through this script with you right now on how I would pitch the product and exactly the language that I would use. So on an outbound pitch, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about outbound dialing. When you call somebody, whoever picks up the phone, always assume that the person that answers the phone is the person that you're looking to speak to. Now, if you're calling Roger Jones and a woman answers the phone, don't assume that that's Roger, but assume that's Mrs. Jones, right? So, you've got Roger Jones's name there. And this would be the tonality and the way that I would say this. I would say, ring, ring. Somebody answers the phone. Hello. I'm going to come in with, hey, Roger. And I'm assuming that first name. Again, it's not, hey, is Roger home? Hey, is this Roger? No, it's, hey, Roger. As if I know Roger just by his voice, even though I've never spoken to him before. That's how you're going to assume the first name and assume that the person that's answering the phone is Roger. So, hey, Roger. Yes. Hey, Roger. My name is Spencer. I'm calling from Smith & Yanis. Reason for the call is due to an online request we received from you for a life insurance quote. How you doing? Good. What did you say this was about? Well, it's about life insurance, sir. I'm glad to hear you're doing well. I'm doing well myself. So just so you know a little bit about me, again, my name is Spencer. I'm the local field underwriter who's been assigned to your case. My job in this process is to get you approved for the policy that best fits your goals. Does that make sense? That's a tie down right there. So tie downs, for those of you that don't know what a tie down is it's a simple sales tool that essentially is trying to get them to agree to something. And you usually get them to agree to something with yes or no questions. And tie downs are things that, as you make them agree to these things along the way, they can be referenced at the end of the call to help close the deal if somebody is trying to, essentially slither away. So they're very effective, and they set you up so that if somebody, again, is saying they need to think about it, or they got to speak to their mother or brother or father or barber or, podiatrist, whoever it is that they tell you they need to talk to before they're able to make this decision, you're able to, reference back to some of the questions in the beginning to make sure that you actually have the best chance of closing this on one call. Now, if you aren't able to close this on one call, it's not the end of the world, guys. Just make sure that you follow the proper steps and get these necessary tie downs. That way you're not spending a lot of time with somebody who is never going to buy this policy from you in any way, right? So just so you know a little bit about myself, again, my name is Spencer. I'm the local field underwriter who's been assigned to your case. My job in this whole process is to get you approved for the policy that best fits your goals. Does that make sense? If that doesn't make sense right there, they're going to say, well, okay. Yeah, no, what I mean by that, ma'am, is that we're going to take a look at a policy right now, right? And if we find something that you like and is affordable and meets your needs, I'm going to walk you through the process to get you approved for that plan. Does that make sense? So if you ask a question, does that make sense? And you get anything other than yes, I'm going to reword that question in a different way. And maybe I might talk a little bit slower, right? So your speed and your pace is important here as well. So my job in this whole process is to get you approved for the policy that best fits your goals. Does that make sense? Yes. I need a yes right there, guys. I don't want any confusion about what the purpose of this call is, right? If there is objections, I want those coming up now, right? If somebody is objecting to that question, we got a lot of work to do. So it's a pulse check. It doesn't necessarily mean let's hang up on the call, but it's going to cue you in to where this person is at in terms of commitment to actually purchasing a policy today, right? And if they're not interested in buying a policy today, again, that doesn't mean that we're hanging up the phone, but we're setting the proper expectations. It's all about expectations. That's what these tie downs are all about. So my job in this whole process is to get you approved for the policy that best fits your goals. Does that make sense? Right? So if you might get something right there in the form of a rebuttal. And that's why you also have this other tab right here. So for those of you that maybe don't have multiple screens, probably what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to print these out. You're going to want to print out the rebuttals, print out the script. That way, one of your screens is just on the insurance toolkit, and you've got this information right here in front of you. Okay. Now, these are, to start off, these are what we call the opening objections, the opening resistance. And a lot of times, if you can overcome these initial opening objections, you have an opportunity or a good opportunity for a sale. All right. So some of these are not, questions that are going to necessarily be a deal breaker for somebody, but they're questions that they're going to want you to answer. And if you don't answer them properly, you're just setting the call off on a bad foot where there might already be some trust and legitimacy concerns, which you want to put those to bed ASAP, right? So who are you with? Which company do you work for? I do not work for one particular company. I work for my clients. What I do is simply offer a complete education on final expense protection and recommend a plan that provides the most benefits at the lowest cost. I imagine that's what you're looking for, right? You see how I changed my voice there a little bit? I really want you guys to pay attention to my delivery here. You might not think that it's so important. Those of you that do understand how important that is and how valuable that is are probably a little bit more seasoned in terms of sales. The studies show, I can't remember exactly what the number is, but it's something like 70%, 80% of communication is body language, right? But there's no body language over the phone. All you have is your voice. So your voice and your tonality is going to take the place of body language. So the way that you deliver these words is going to play in to how the words are received. So I don't work for one particular company. I work for my clients. What I do is I simply offer a complete education on final expense protection and recommend a plan that provides the most benefits at the lowest cost. Now, I imagine that's what you're looking for, right? I'm being very informational, very professional as I begin that rebuttal, but then that last closing sentence, I'm getting a little bit more soft, a little bit more personal, and I'm trying to sound as genuine as possible when I ask that question. Now, I imagine that's what you're looking for, right? Okay. So I'm going up, I'm going down, my voice inflection's changing. I do not work for one particular company. I work for my clients. What I do is simply offer a complete education on final expense protection and recommend a plan that provides the most benefits at the lowest cost. I imagine that's what you're looking for, right? Okay. So again, we're on the script. This is where these opening objections are going to come in. It's right around here when you try to get this first tie down. Or it might be right here with, the reason for my call is due to an online request we received for a life insurance quote. How you doing? That's when they're going to respond with, instead of, I'm doing fine, they're going to respond with, wait, who are you with? Which company do you work for? Right? That's where that objection is going to come in. And then you need to just be ready right then and there. Very clean, no hesitation, no marbles in your mouth. Your delivery needs to be on point. So you certainly want to rehearse this. Really want to rehearse this. The rebuttals, guys, honestly, the difference between an average producer and a top producer is going to be their ability to rebuttal. That's so important on a phone sale. So all these words that you need to use, they're all right here in front of you. It's a lot of muscle memory. Your tongue needs to learn how to spit these out without making mistakes. So definitely something that I would be working on ASAP is going over these rebuttals and preferably with somebody else. Whether it's a friend, another salesperson that a spouse, have somebody actually give you that objection. Like, who are you with? Which company do you work for? And tell them to be a jerk. I don't work for one particular company. I work for my clients. What I do is simply offer a complete education on final expense protection and recommend a plan that provides the most benefits at the lowest cost. I imagine that's what you're looking for, right? Boom. You're also going to get questions about where are you located? Well, my main office is located in Florida. I myself am licensed in Wisconsin to discuss your life insurance options. You do want to work with a state of Wisconsin licensed individual, correct? Again, you're changing your voice a little bit there at the end. You're trying to be a little bit softer. You're trying to make sure that you're sounding as genuine as possible. Your voice inflection is going up and down. So where are you located? Well, my main office is in Florida. I myself, I'm licensed in Wisconsin to discuss your life insurance options. You do want to work with a state of Wisconsin licensed individual, correct? Things like that, changing your voice, sounding clean, not having to think before you speak, really no hesitation when somebody has a question. If they hear that you're having to think about it and you've got marbles in your mouth, again, this is where those legitimacy issues start to come up, where they're not sure that they're going to trust this person because they're not answering those first initial questions confidently. Again, we're going to come back to that word confident a lot. If you are not pitching with confidence and pitching with a purpose, these people are just not going to trust you enough to move forward with you at as high of a rate as they could. Here's another one. I'm already working with an agent. Realistically, when you're purchasing exclusive leads and you're hearing that they're already working with an agent, my guess is that they're probably being dishonest with you. They're probably not already working with an agent. They just maybe changed their mind that they don't necessarily want to go through this process of getting pitched and closed right now. So they're going to tell you that they're already working with somebody. It's essentially, it's a way to kind of brush you off the phone. But sadly, we're going to have to play this little game with them where we're not really being honest with each other. And you're going to have to, keep the conversation going. Because if you can make the conversation last for more than a couple minutes, with every second that they're staying on the phone, you're just increasing your rate of a potential sale. They're going to have some of these initial objections. And they're going to try to push you off the phone, even when this person went online themselves and requested this information. Again, it's just sometimes a matter of, since they submitted the information, they've kind of thought about it a little bit more, and maybe they're not that interested right now, or, maybe they kept browsing around and they read an article that said that the insurance was going to be too expensive, or, that they should wait, or whatever it is. So your ability to overcome these initial objections and keep them on the phone is going to increase your chances at a sale. So I'm already working with an agent. That's fantastic. When I hear that, it makes me think of two things. Number one, why haven't you put protection in place? And then number two, are you aware that there's three different types of agents? There's captive agents, there's career agents, and there's independent agents. Now, captive agents and career agents, ma'am or sir, they're only able to offer you the one company that they work with. An independent agent like myself, I work with many different carriers. So I have the ability to offer you all your options and try to find you a plan that's going to offer you the most amount of coverage for the least amount of money. I'm really going to be able to get you the best price. Okay, so you want to do business with an independent agent because, again, I've got so many different carriers we can look at here for you. Now, and now that you know the types, can you see why it's important to work with someone like me who holds no bias and doesn't work for one particular company? Again, explaining those differences and letting them know why they should be working with an independent agent is going to increase the chance that they're going to want additional information from you. Now, again, when someone tells me they're already working with an agent and I'm purchasing exclusive leads, chances are this person is not being honest with me, and I'm going to assume that. Again, if I believe what they say, the call is dead in the water right there, right? If I'm going to accept the fact that this person is already working with an agent, then that means that I'm just going to be hanging up the phone right there, and I've got no opportunity for a sale at all. I'm letting that person go, essentially. But if I go into the call with the belief that they're not already working with an agent and they're really just trying to push me and brush me off, then I'm actually going to continue to work this person, and I'm going to continue to fight for the opportunity at a sale. So, if you go through this and they say they're already working with an agent, and you explain this and they still are like, well, no, I'm really, I'm going to stick with the agent that I have. The round two on that would be something along the lines of, well, at the very least, let me provide you with a competing quote to make sure that the agent that you're working with, is really giving you the best price. Insurance can already be expensive. It's certainly something that you don't want to overpay for. And I don't see any harm in getting yourself a competing quote so that that you're getting qualified for the best possible price that you can. How does that sound? All right. So I'm going to hit them with that rebuttal on that one. And then I'm probably then going to hit them with a second one because, again, they're not already working with an agent. They're not. They just don't want to do this right now. So the more that you can rebuttal and for lack of a better word, push, you have to be stubborn. You have to be pleasantly persistent. And if you can get past those first initial objections, again, now we have an opportunity for a sale. If you just take information from these people at face value, again, you're going to miss opportunities for sales. There's no such thing as the perfect lead. There's no such thing as the perfect opportunity. You have to sometimes create the perfect opportunity for yourself. And that's by not accepting things at face value and understanding that a large percentage of people are not going to be honest with you because at the end of the day, you're a salesperson and this is a negotiation. And believe me, these customers are not naive to that. They're not always going to be completely upfront and honest with you. So you have to know that going in and have different sales tactics and tools that you can use to try to overcome that. One of those things being these rebuttals right here. All right. Somebody else might say, I already have coverage. Again, this is the same exact thing as the one before it. 90% of these people are being dishonest with you. If they went looking for a quote and you just got that lead, and now all of a sudden you call it the same day and they're saying they already have coverage, guys, they don't. They don't. They're trying to brush you off the phone. They're trying to have you stop calling them. They're trying to, push this off, essentially. They input their information. Not all of them realize that essentially they're going to get a phone call right away. Sometimes these are seniors. They're naive, whatever the case may be. So if they start telling you that they've already got coverage and you just received the lead, 10 minutes ago or even a day or two ago, they don't already have coverage. You and I both know that it takes time to get an application submitted and get quoted and get approved by the underwriter. But at the same time, it's like the rebuttal before. Now we got to play this little game with them where we're not being honest with each other. Because if you're too upfront with these people and you try to call them out on their BS too directly, you might as well hang up on them, because they're going to be insulted. And now, even though you're right and they're wrong, you're still wrong. So you have to play these little games with them where they, you kind of believe their lies and so forth. But you hit them with logic that can overcome that. So I already have coverage. Okay, I understand that for sure. Most of my clients already have something in place too. You were kind enough to fill out an online request, so I can only assume you were curious about how much it would be to get more coverage. Am I correct? Well, like I said, I already have coverage, so I don't think that I really need anything additional right now. Sometimes there might be a round two that's required on this. What I would do in that scenario is I would say something along the lines of, I'm an independent agent. I'm able to shop all your options and try to find you the most amount of coverage for the least amount of money. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to continue with my qualification, and I'm going to get you the information that you requested, because again, you were kind enough to put that information in online, and I want to make sure you get the information that you need. Fair enough? Again, soft, but also firm. I'm using those closing sentences. Am I correct? Fair enough. Does that work? These are usually yes and no questions, and you're presenting them in a way that you're going to get a yes. That's really what we want. We want to ask questions that we're going to get yeses to. Now, guys, something that I want to, speak to, because I know probably some of you guys in your heads right now are thinking like, man, is this really going to work every single time? No, it's not going to work every single time. It's going to work a certain percentage of the time. And a lot of times the most important thing that you have to do is literally just say something. Anything that you say other than taking them at taking what they say at face value and hanging up the call is better, right? No, it's not. You're not going to be able to overcome the objections every single time. But these are things that I have used that have worked for me. So I know that they're proven and they will be effective. One of the biggest things that you have to do is actually rebuttal. I can't tell you how many salespeople want to just get laydowns. They want a lead to come across, and for that person to say, yep, I want 20,000. Okay, 20,000 is $150 a month. Do you want to sign up? Yes, I do. Okay. What's your bank account? Perfect. What's your social? I wish every sale was going to be that way, guys. It's not. It's not. Are there going to be laydowns? Yes, absolutely. There's going to be people that are going to pick up the phone. They're ready to go. They want to get this checked off their list. But there's also going to be people that are going to be hesitant, and they're going to be leery about who you are. And they're going to come up with, smoke screens about why they can't do it right now. And you have to be able to see right through it. You have to be pleasantly persistent, and you have to be stubborn in some cases. And if you're willing to do that, you have an opportunity to make a lot of money offering a very simple product, completing a very simple sale. But I can tell you right now that if you're constantly letting these people dictate the terms, and if you're accepting their objections as the truth, when 90% of the time they're a lie, you're going to miss out on so many opportunities to make money. You have to do these things. All right. This one right here, I want to think about it. We're going to circle back to that because this is going to happen later on in the call. These ones, I already have coverage. I'm already working with an agent. Where are you located? Who are you with? These are all happening in the very beginning. So, if you're consistently not getting to the point where you're even able to get someone to say, I want to think about it, that means you need to work on these initial ones. Okay. And again, the leads have the intent enough of the time that you'll probably get through this, even if you kind of half, but again, you'll leave opportunities on the table if you don't master these specific situations, because they're going to come up. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. Okay, so let's go back to the script for a second here. Okay, so here we are. We've gotten, my job in this whole process is to get you approved for the policy that best fits your goals. Does that make sense? Yes, perfect. Okay, so tell me, do you have life insurance currently, or is this going to be your first time applying for a policy? That's important, guys, because if they've already applied for a policy, right, why are they looking for another policy? Is it because they already got turned down? So you're going to learn something here. Is this your first time applying for a policy? Yes, actually it is. Okay, that's fantastic. Is this going to be your first time applying for a policy? No, it's not. Okay. When was the last time there's a follow-up question here. So if it's not their first time, you're gonna pry and you're gonna look for information. The more information that you get out of these people, the easier it's going to be to close them. This step 2, we're in information gathering. This is an information gathering phase. All right. So every answer that they provide to you is going to clue you in more to what their specific situation is. And as you get more experience, is going to clue you in on how to better close them. All right. So is this going to be your first time applying for a policy? Yes, it is. Actually, I've never applied for life insurance before. Okay, that's fantastic. We're definitely going to be able to go through this process today, and I'll be able to help get you approved for a policy that best fits your goals, as I said before. I might reiterate that tie down right there. Even though I just said that before, I might say that again, just to further cement the expectations on this call. Setting the proper expectations is the most important thing. But I'm actually going to learn a little bit more if they say no to that question. Because if this is not their first time applying for a policy, I want to know, okay, when was the last time that you applied? Who did you apply with? And if you've applied before in the past, is there a reason why you're applying for more coverage? Is it because that policy, was a term plan and the term ran out? Was it a policy that just became unaffordable, so you had to cancel it? What happened with these previous policies? Which carriers was it with? How much were they paying? All that information is extremely valuable. If they tell you that the policy just got to be too expensive, we need to know how much was that policy. If that policy was $150 a month and they had to cancel it because it was too expensive, now we know we need to be under $150 a month, right? How much coverage are you looking for, right? Once I start to ask these questions, how much coverage are you looking for? I'm over here now. I'm over here on the quoting screen. How much coverage are you looking for? 20,000, they say. Okay, right in the face amount, I'm going to put 20,000. I'm keeping up here, right? Because I want to be as efficient as possible with this person. I want to show them that I know exactly what I'm doing and that this is easy for me and that I've been through this process a million times and I'm going to take good care of them. I've had a ton of people in your situation. This is a breeze. I can do this like breathing. So how much coverage are you looking for? 20,000. Perfect. I'm putting that in there, 20 grand. Do you have any medical conditions, right? So when there's medical conditions, I'm over here now. Do you have any medical conditions? Yes, I do actually. And they want the date of birth first. So you're going to have to get the date of birth. Do you have any medical conditions? Yes, diabetes. Okay. Diabetes. Now, with the diabetes, is that with complications or no complications? I'm not really sure. Okay, well, diabetes with complications, ma'am, that would be like if you've had a diabetic coma, diabetic nephropathy, diabetic neuropathy, diabetic retinopathy, insulin shock. Any of those apply to you? No, they don't. Okay, then you'd be diabetes with no complications. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put that in here for you. And the date of the last treatment. So you're taking a medication for that. Is that right? Yes, I am. Okay. So you take that every day, correct? Yes, I do. Okay. So then your date of last treatment would be today because you took a pill today. When were you diagnosed with that? How many years ago? Oh, it was about 5 years ago. Okay. So approximately about 2017. And do you use insulin or do you just use a pill? I just use a pill. Okay. So if you just use a pill, is that metformin that you're currently taking? And again, I'm going to ask that question about metformin because I want them to know that I'm familiar with the medications for specific conditions, which is just further evidence that I've done this before, right? And there's information over here back on the final expense quick reference sheet. Common RX. These are the most common medications you're going to come across. If someone has high blood pressure, most likely it's going to be lisinopril. If they have diabetes, most likely it's going to be metformin. If they have neuropathy, most likely they're going to be taking gabapentin, Lyrica, Neurontin, cholesterol, simvastatin. So this is helpful information, guys. Again, this is the legitimacy builder. This is about building trust. This is about building rapport by showing them, not telling them, but showing them that you know what you're talking about and you've been through this process before and you are a professional and you already know what medications they're taking before they even have to tell you, right? I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody say to me like, man, what do you how do you know what medications I'm taking? And I just come back with, it's just because I've been through this process so many times. Most people are taking all the same medications. So I know that if you're being treated for high blood pressure, chances are you're probably using lisinopril. If you're a diabetic, chances are you're probably using metformin. If you have high cholesterol, chances are you're probably taking simvastatin. All right, so that just comes from the experience of being through this process so many times and helping people that are in the exact same situation that you're in. What's going to be really helpful for you is that I'm going to be able to find a carrier that's going to approve you the first time at the lowest possible rate. Okay. All right. So going back here to the quoting tool. So again, we're still asking about pre-existing conditions. So she said diabetes, no complications. I said, okay, are you taking metformin for that? She came back with, yes. How'd you know that? Oh, well, I got a crystal ball, man. So metformin, she told us no complications. So we're going to click that again. Date of last fill, currently taking, right? You're going to probably have that box checked. Date of first fill, this would be when she was prescribed it, very first, 5 years ago when she was diagnosed. Finish. So now we got the diabetes in there. We got the metformin. Any other pre-existing conditions that you have, ma'am? Yes, I have high blood pressure. Okay. So let me go ahead. Let me just put that in there. And are you taking a medication for that? Yes, I am. Okay, so that's controlled. That's really good. All right. And then you're taking a medication. So your date of last treatment would be today. And for your high blood pressure, was that lisinopril that you're using for that? Maybe amlodipine? Yes, actually lisinopril. That's right. And again, the other thing that's so helpful that they will appreciate is you're going to ask them what medications they're taking, and they're going to be like, "Oh shoot, what is the name of that medication?" You put me on the spot. You're going to be like, "Is it lisinopril?" And be like, "Oh yes, that's what it is." Again, like these things seem subtle, guys, but I can tell you, I've been through this process so many. Before I started selling life insurance over the phone, I sold Medicare supplements over the phone. Okay, me and a group of about 4 people did 5,000 applications in about a period of less than 2 years, about 18 months. So I've been through the process with people in their 60s and 70s and even 80s so many times. Now, when you factor in the life insurance applications as well, I can have this conversation in my sleep. I know what's effective. I know what's going to work. These little rapport building tools about their medications and their prescriptions and so forth are so helpful. And then, of course, if you get somebody on the phone and you say, "Hey, do you have any pre-existing conditions? Are you taking any medications?" And they say, "No, actually, I don't take any prescriptions at all. I don't have any pre-existing conditions." Now we go right in. You need to be complimenting them. Oh my God, you can't imagine how many people I speak to, and they've got this big, long laundry list of medications. and you're not in anything. I'm so happy to hear that. What's your secret? You're the white unicorn I've been looking for. So you're building them up, you're complimenting them on taking care of themselves, and they're going to all say the same thing. It's diet and exercise. I take care of myself. I watch what I eat. I exercise regularly, and then I'm going to come back with something like, man, so that really is the secret. There's a role that you need to play here in some cases, right? So if there's no medications at all, don't just say, okay, that's great, and move on. I would stop and I would harp on that for a second. Again, this is a rapport building moment. Oh my God, no medication. You can't imagine how many people I speak to, and they've got, 10 pages of medications that we got to put in here. You're making my job really easy. What's your secret? Well, diet and exercise. Oh, that's great. Okay. So moving on here, high blood pressure, lisinopril. Now, this is an important distinction, and this is a training moment just for you guys. Take a look at this. Lisinopril, right? Most common medication for high blood pressure. Look what else it can be used to treat. It can be used to treat congestive heart failure and a heart attack. Okay, so that's why it's really important to understand the different uses for these medications. When an underwriter takes a look at this and they see that somebody's taken lisinopril, they might not necessarily know, is it because they're treating high blood pressure, or is it because they're treating congestive heart failure, or maybe it's to help them prevent another heart attack. So sometimes an underwriter is going to ask you, like, hey, I'm reviewing your application here, and I see that your client is taking lisinopril. I need you to find out from your client, are they taking that for high blood pressure, or are they taking that for congestive heart failure, right? So that might come up from time to time. Controlled means they're taking a medication. Uncontrolled means they're not. So believe it or not, in the eyes of the insurance company, they much prefer someone taking a medication than not if they actually have this pre-existing condition. If they have high blood pressure and they're not taking a medication to control it, they're at a higher risk than somebody else who has high blood pressure and actually is taking the medication to make sure it's controlled. So it's not a bad thing that they're taking a medication if they have that pre-existing condition. Okay. Data last fill, currently taking. Data first fill, this is when it was diagnosed back in 2017. Finish. Okay, perfect. So diabetes, high blood pressure, metformin, lisinopril. Is there anything else that you're currently taking, ma'am? No, that's going to do it. Okay, fantastic. So we got that out of the way. And then just to verify, are you a U.S. citizen or green card holder? And I do have to ask, you do have a checking account in the United States. Am I correct in saying that? Okay, perfect. And if we find something that's affordable, that meets your needs, I'm assuming you want to submit an application as soon as possible to avoid any upcoming rate increases. Is that also correct? Perfect. Okay, so what are we doing here? We're asking questions that are probably going to have yes answers because we're about to lead into another tie down. So we want to kind of prepare them to say yes, 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 so that when we hit the tie down, boom, they just say yes to that as well. And now they've stepped into another one of our bear traps. And again, that's what we're doing all throughout this setup, is we're setting bear traps and hoping that they step into them so that way, when we get to the end of the call and it's time for them to make a buying decision, they can't run away because they've got both legs stuck in a bear trap at that point. And now we've got them. All right. So now we've increased our opportunity at a sale. So my job in this whole process is to get you approved for the policy that best fits your goals. Does that make sense? Yes, perfect. So now they've agreed that the purpose here is to get approved. Okay, and if we do find something affordable that meets your needs, I'm assuming you want to submit an application as soon as possible to avoid any upcoming rate increases. Is that correct? Okay, so we just presented a scenario that if we accomplish two things, they would want to submit an application with us. So if I get a yes to that question, now I have two things left to do. I have to find something affordable, and I have to find something that meets their needs. What are their needs? Their needs are how much coverage are they looking for, right? This is their needs right here. How much coverage are you looking for? I'm looking for 20,000. That's their need. Okay. So we know that we need to accomplish that. And then we know we need to find something that's affordable. All right. To verify you are a U.S. citizen or green card holder, yes, I am. Perfect. You're going to get a yes there most of the time. It's a setup question. And I do have to ask, you do have a checking account in the United States. Am I correct in saying that? That's a really important question, guys. The reason why that question is so important is because some carriers only accept a bank draft. All right. And that's why they have this payment type thing right down here. We want to find out before we start going over options and quotes whether or not this person is going to be able to use a bank account. Because if they don't have one, they are out there, they will not have a bank account. We need to make sure we put the proper setting in here so that we only look at the carriers that are going to either accept a Direct Express card or accept a credit card. Okay, what's a Direct Express card? Direct Express card is similar to a debit card where every single month the Social Security office is going to deposit their Social Security benefits onto this card, and then essentially they pay all of their bills from the Direct Express card. So as opposed to having a bank account and a debit card, they just have a refillable debit card that's issued to them by the Social Security Department. Okay, and some carriers do take that. It's not necessarily a problem. The problem arises when you start to talk about your commission, because when they are paying with a Direct Express card or a credit card or a debit card, as opposed to a bank account, you're going to be paid as earned on that policy. Okay, so, these plans with the 9-month advance, you need a bank account on file in order to receive that. Now, we did find out recently that Prosperity is going to be advancing on a Direct Express card. So I think they said May or June. I think it was June. June, they'll be accepting the Direct Express card and then still paying in advance if you put a Direct Express card on the application. So just be mindful of that, guys. We want a bank draft. We want them to do the electronic funds transfer. It's the routing and account number that's on the bottom of a check, right? That's what we want for payment. We don't want to use the Direct Express or credit card unless we have to, okay? All right, so for the purposes of this quote, we're going to put bank draft. Let's go back here for a second. Okay, because we are ready to now get a quote for this person. All right. So you're actually going to want to ask a couple follow-up questions here. I apologize. You need the height and weight. So it says optional there. I really wish they would remove that, because these carriers are going to have a height and weight chart. And if they are outside of the height and weight chart, they will not qualify for the plan. So you need to have that information on there. You also need to have tobacco usage. So before you go ahead and click get quote, make sure you just put their gender on here, the state that they live, again, their birthday, height and weight, nicotine use, and then of course that payment type. Okay, then we can click get quote. And this is going to spit out the options that we have. Okay, back to the script for a moment here. So this is, again, going to include a tie down in this area. It's also going to build some credibility and trust. So again, my job is very simple. I do not represent one insurance company. We represent over 30 different carriers in the state of Florida. Mutual of Omaha, Americo, AIG, just to name a few. I'm sure you've seen the commercials. My role here is to identify which one of these carriers is going to benefit you the most. Which one of these carriers are actually going to provide you with the most affordable policy and best policy for your situation. Now, these policies are state regulated, non-medical policies. I'm not sure if you know what that means. There's no blood work or urine sample. We're not going to be pricking you with needles or coming out with a scale. I'm just going to be guiding you through the compliance of the market analysis. Does that make sense? Again, we want a yes right there. Okay, if that does not make sense, we need to reword what we just said in different words, and sometimes a little bit simpler. No, that doesn't really make sense. Okay, so the long and the short of it, ma'am, is that I'm shopping many different carriers for you, so I can find you a low price, right? And I want you to know that there's no nurse or paramedic that's coming out to your house to check your health. Okay, I'm just going to ask you some medical questions, And as long as you answer no to those medical questions, and as long as you are honest with me about the pre-existing conditions and medications you have, you should be able to be approved for this. Okay, does that make sense? Right? All right. So now, what I'm going to do is start verifying some simple information so we can start your market analysis to see what product is going to best fit your situation. So let me ask you, you said your age is 70. Will you verify your date of birth, please? Perfect. Height and weight, zip code. You said your pre-existing conditions were diabetes, high blood pressure. You're taking metformin, you're taking lisinopril. Okay. When we get you approved for your policy, who would you like to list down as a beneficiary? Who would you like to receive the benefits from your policy? Okay. This is a huge moment. Okay. Because the whole purpose of this conversation you're having is for that person right there. So if they say, my husband, Roger, and you just move on, you just missed an opportunity there. We need to harp on this situation, and we need to talk about Roger, and we need to talk about why Roger is important, and we need to talk about, how, protected Roger's going to be, thanks to the fact that we're going to have this policy in place, how much easier it's going to be when that time comes. I like to give an example. In my situation, when my father passed away, he had essentially one life insurance policy in place, and that was a rather large life insurance policy. And that policy is something that takes a little bit of time to get paid out. So what happened when he passed away was essentially we had to go to the funeral home and we had to pay for the entire thing out of pocket because he didn't specifically have a final expense plan that we could bring with us to the funeral home in order to use as collateral, because that's a lot of times what a funeral home will do for you. I can't bring a $500,000 life insurance policy and leave that certificate with the funeral director to pay for the funeral, right? But with a final expense plan, what we would have been able to do is we would have been able to bring that final expense certificate and we would have been able to present that to the funeral home, and then they would have held that as collateral until that got paid out, until that policy got paid out, so that we wouldn't have to come out of pocket, right? But unfortunately, that wasn't our situation. That was a learning lesson for us. We didn't realize that it was going to take so long for the whole life policy to pay out. So, it's not that we didn't have the money. It just was kind of a downer when you're already.
Spencer, you muted yourself.
Why is that happening? Hold on a second. I'm sorry. What the? My phone is such a piece of shit. There, it's back. Can you hear me?
Yes. You're still muted.
Guys, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Back in action. Okay, I'm so sorry about that. Okay.
Right.
All right. So what was the last thing that you guys heard me say? I was talking about the funeral director, right? Okay, perfect. So the long and the short of it is that whenever that time comes that that person passes away, there's this situation where now it's time to go negotiate with the funeral director and find out exactly how much this thing is going to cost. And a lot of times that's an expense that a family member is going to have to cover out of their own pocket. And unfortunately, it can take a while sometimes for a whole life plan to pay out, especially if the estate is complicated as the way it was with my father. So what would have been a lot easier is if we'd had a final expense plan, we literally could have just brought that certificate with us to the funeral home. The funeral director can hold that final expense plan as collateral. I don't have to pay anything out of pocket. We have the funeral. Once that policy pays out, the funeral director gets their piece. We keep the remainder ourselves. Nobody has to bear that burden unnecessarily. Okay. So this portion, when we start talking about that beneficiary, especially if it's a man on the phone, talking about wanting to make sure that his wife doesn't have any issues, this will really set them up nicely for that. Because again, she's going to go to the funeral home. She's going to have that certificate. She's going to know what her budget is, right? It's not this like, well, with $13,000 to get the platinum plated casket, we don't have $13,000 to play with here. We've got a $10,000 policy, right? And maybe some of that 10,000 is already spoken for something else. So it's helpful. And that's just an opportunity to check in with them about who this beneficiary is and what role that person's played in their lives and how important that person is to them, and congratulating them for purchasing a final. Again, we're assuming the sale right here. Congratulating them on being proactive and getting this policy in place. So when that time comes that you pass, your family gets to spend that time celebrating your life instead of having to struggle through your death. So last thing you're going to verify is just the amount, right? So we're looking for 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, whatever the case may be. All right. So once you've verified that information, again, you're here now, you're looking at this, you're determining in your head which carrier that you want to go with. And this might seem overwhelming to you guys here in the beginning. Look at all these different carriers. Should I just go with the lowest price? Should I go with a brand name that I know they're going to like? How do I choose which carrier I want to go with here? And so there's a couple questions that I'm asking myself in my head. Is this person somebody that I think is going to have a hard time doing an e-signature? If I feel like this person is going to be challenged by completing an e-signature, I might want to go right for CVS Health because at $142.80, maybe it's not the lowest price plan in the state, but it's certainly very competitive. They're going to have living benefits that are available to them, and there's no e-signature that they have to complete. It's literally just a security question, something along the lines of mother's maiden name. Okay, so the application process is very simple with Aetna. Now, there's something to be mindful of with Aetna, and this is again as you have more experience. These are the questions you're going to be asking in your head. So you come up here. We're looking at lisinopril, right? We're looking at metformin. These are very basic medications. Although lisinopril is a dual purpose where it had that congestive heart failure and it had that heart attack, most of the time this is going to be used for high blood pressure. So it's not going to create too much of an issue. Aetna has what's called point of sale underwriting. So that means that when you submit the application, essentially a computer is going to look at their MIB, their medical information, and they're going to look at the RX background,
and they may give you a decision right then and there if they're willing to approve this person. And so if I've got somebody who's diabetic on metformin, high blood pressure, taking lisinopril, I have full confidence that I'm going to approve that person for me, right? Now, it is possible that this person is not being completely honest with me, and that there are more conditions here and more medications here. If those are the only medications and pre-existing conditions that they have, that's when, again, this question up here is valuable for you. Remember when we asked, do you have life insurance currently, or is this going to be your first time applying? And if this is not their first time applying and they don't currently have life insurance, that's going to cue me in that they've probably applied before and there's a chance they've been turned down. So if they don't currently have insurance and this is not their first time applying, right, I might ask, have you ever had life insurance before? If they know, and then we get down here to medical conditions and you start telling me that you've got high blood pressure and you've got just diabetes with metformin, but this isn't your first time applying and you don't have life insurance now, that something is just, spidey sense is popping up. Like maybe they're not necessarily being fully truthful here with me, because typically somebody with those medical conditions, they wouldn't have a problem getting approved for insurance. So if they've applied before and they don't have it now, other than, hey, I applied and I couldn't afford it, so I canceled it. Other than that situation, there really isn't any reason why they shouldn't already have life insurance with those pre-existing conditions. So again, just, pay attention to the answers that you're getting. Think critically. Sometimes you have to almost take on the role of like a detective here. You've got all these different pieces of evidence. You know that the person sitting across the table from you is guilty, and you've got to find a way to prove it, right? So you have to use the information and the evidence that you've been giving to build a narrative and a story on what you think is going on most likely. And that will help you understand the situation better and ultimately help you close the deal at a higher percentage. All right. So going back to what we're looking at here with the different options. I'll tell you flat out, Transamerica is going to have one of the best prices in just about every single state you look at. The only drawback with Transamerica is their underwriting is not the fastest. And it takes time to get applications approved. Sometimes they want additional information and you got to get a form filled out. It's not necessarily the most streamlined underwriting process. So again, price is always going to be very competitive. So if I have somebody on the phone who's extremely price conscious, again, that's when I'm going to start to lean towards them a little bit more. But if I know, that I've got a little bit of room to work with here, I might start with a CVS or a Mutual of Omaha or a Foresters. And then if I'm just having to come down a little bit, to get the sale, maybe then I would flip to a Transamerica. But again, the underwriting process for me is so important because I want to be able to get them an underwriting decision very quickly. And Aetna, in some cases, is going to give me that point of sale approval right then and there. Mutual of Omaha is usually within 24 hours, so it's very quick. American Amicable can give you a decision very quickly. Prosperity can give you a decision really quickly. But now we're starting to get, sort of a little bit higher. So in this scenario here, I'd probably be looking at CVS, Aetna, or Mutual of Omaha. I might submit it right away with CVS, Aetna. And if they get denied right at the point of application, right at the point of sale, I would then immediately pivot and put them in with Mutual of Omaha. But, based on the information that I was given, this should be a shoe-in with Aetna. This should just be approved right then and there. Again, it's when they're not necessarily being fully upfront that you might run into an issue. So I would submit them right then and there with Aetna. If they get turned down, me personally, I love Mutual of Omaha. The people are so friendly over there to work with in the agent support department. The underwriting team's extremely quick. They appoint you in the state extremely quick. and they pay your commission extremely quick. So if we're talking about, a couple of dollars here, Mutual of Omaha is one of my favorite carriers. Again, the advantage here with CVS Aetna, no e-signature, guys. If we're talking to somebody 74, 75 years old, and you can tell that this is somebody who's still using a flip phone, the chances of getting that application e-signed without some help from a family member are slim to none. And I'll tell you right now, I've three-way called family members numerous times to get help for a 74, 75, 76-year-old who just couldn't figure out how to e-sign. I conference in the grandson. The grandson becomes your best friend. He's probably going to be about 22. He's not going to ask a lot of questions. He's just going to hear from grandma that we got to get this signed for their life insurance. And he's just going to get it done in about 2 seconds because he needs to get back to, Call of Duty and Halo, and his buddies are waiting for him. There was another talking point that I had, and I just distracted myself with that Halo reference. Okay. Obviously, the e-app button's right here. So once we get that price agreement, we're able to go right to the application. But let's say for the purposes of this conversation, we decide to go with CVS Health, which again, this is Aetna. This is Aetna's product. Aetna purchased CVS, if you guys didn't know that. The premium's $142.80. It's the preferred rate. Okay, so preferred rate means that there's not going to be any waiting period for the death benefit, right? Preferred and level are tomato. It's the same exact thing. Once the policy is approved and the first premium is paid, the benefit amount will be payable on the effective date. So they don't have to wait 2 years for the full face amount. It's not a return of premium plus 10% the way most of the graded policies works. They get the full face amount right away. So preferred is best case scenario. You can see down here, they still show you a guaranteed issue option. Again, they're just kind of grouping that in here so you know that what that price would be for guaranteed issue. But there's no reason for somebody with these pre-existing conditions and these medications to not be submitted preferred. So our premium's $142.80, right? Our benefit amount is $20,000. Let's go back to the script. Okay. So Roger, based on the information you've given me, you're 100% going to be eligible for a policy. One thing to remember, Roger, this is not up to me nor you. This is completely determined by the underwriting of the insurance company. Now, again, based on the information you've given me from doing this, for you guys, probably don't say 10 years, probably say from doing this many times, I would 100% suggest we try to first apply with Aetna. The reason why I recommend this company is they provide $20,000 of coverage for as low as $142.80. They're also an A-rated company, and I'm sure you've obviously heard of Aetna, right? Great. Aetna, one of the biggest insurance companies in the world. They have a fantastic reputation. They have a very simple and easy underwriting process where, the e-signature, you're not going to be stuck clicking around for 10 minutes trying to figure out how to e-sign this thing. I'm just going to have you give me a security question like your mother's maiden name, and we'll be able to submit the application. And then most of the time, they're going to give me your approval decision while you and I are still on the phone together. How does that sound? Great. So again, you're going to tell them kind of the high points of that particular carrier and why you think it's a good choice. You may also go into the living benefits right there. Some agents like to save the living benefits for the close. If there's any reluctance or they're saying they need to think about it and so forth, there's a living benefits cheat sheet that I'll be sending over to you guys that tells you for no additional cost the living benefits that these policies include for people. They have things like a nursing home confinement rider. So if they get confined to a nursing home, 5% of the face amount is paid to them monthly as a benefit. So if the benefits amount, say $20,000, 5% a month would be like $1,200. So if they get confined to a nursing home, they'll get $1,200 a month paid to them from the insurance company. They also have accelerated death benefit riders for either a terminal illness, where if they've been given 12 months or less to live, the full face amount is payable to them right away that they can use while they're alive and well. You know, maybe there was a trip that they never got to take to Paris or something along those lines. They can get that full $20,000. So I'll give you guys a cheat sheet so you know which carriers offer those living benefits included in the premium for no additional cost. And those are the kind of things I might cover right here, unless again you want to save that for the close to have that kind of be the feather that breaks the camel's back, to have them make a decision today by giving them that hot selling point to help make the decision a little bit easier. Okay, so now we're going to start to get into the close. So Roger, what we'll be doing now is applying electronically through Aetna. I'm going to make this very simple and walk you through this whole process. Now, before we do anything, I'm going to be your national agent. From here on out, I want to make sure you have someone to reach out to at all times. Do you have a pen and paper handy? Great. First, write down the company that will be insuring you for the amount of $20,000. Again, that company will be Aetna. Under that, I want you to put my name. Again, I will be the one your beneficiary will be calling when this situation does occur. My name is Spencer Smith. My phone number is going to be 954-830-0423. Now, because of COVID, I am extremely busy right now. I would also like you to have my email. If for some reason you have a question, you need answered immediately, and I'm on the phone with a client, or you need to email me for a quick question, my email is spencer@smithandyanis.com. Now, also my hours are Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. I will be in on Friday from 12 to 4. And even on Saturday, you can reach me from noon to 5. I'm also accessible to you at any time as I'm here to service. So that portion right there, guys, make that your own. Whatever hours you want to be available for these people, I would have those hours set so that they will realistically have the right expectation on when to reach out to you. If you don't do that, you'll find you start getting calls at 8 o'clock at night. You start getting calls on Saturday and Sunday when maybe you don't want to. So that part's not necessarily mandatory, and again, none of this is mandatory, but it's really up to you if you want to give them a schedule. I would recommend it because again, it just gives them a feeling of hours that they can reach out to you, and it gives them that feeling of credibility and legitimacy that you have office hours essentially. Also, write down this confirmation code. I don't care if someone calls you and they sound like me and have the same phone number. Do not speak to them if they do not have this number. That confirmation number is, whatever confirmation number you want to come up with. The reason for that, guys, is, if in the event that, somebody else gets a hold of this person's information and they start trying to, call up, and tell them that the policy that they have is no good for them, and they might want to, switch to a different carrier or whatever the case may be. And then they say, well, are you from, Spencer's office? Oh yeah, of course. And somebody might not necessarily be as honest and ethical as we are. So it's just an added layer of protection to have them write down. I know that most big corporate companies, when you call in for customer service, they usually have a confirmation number for you. So again, it's just following the normal protocol of how a phone sale is carried out at a professional and corporate level. All right, and then for your consideration of coverage, Spencer, will you be using a checking account? Yes, I will. Okay, great. Who do you bank with? That's how you ask. When it's time to ask for the routing and account number, you want to ask for it in a very formal and professional way. So, and for your consideration of coverage, Spencer, will you be using a checking account? Yes, I will. Okay. Who do you bank with? I work with Bank of America. Perfect. And then the routing number first. The routing number first. My voice is going up there. Perfect. And the routing number first. Okay. And the account. Great. Let me read that back to you. Okay. So we are going to go ahead and we're going to pull that method of payment before you spend any time going through this application, right? Because the last thing you want to do is spend an extra 15 minutes right now filling out that application for somebody that's not really willing to move forward. Yeah, if we're going to spend that time now doing the application, let's make sure that we can get that method of payment. The second we have that method of payment, I'll spend 30 minutes going through that application with you if I have to. But let's make sure that this person is ready to buy and is ready to agree. And if not, this is when those other objections are going to start to come up. So let's go back to the rebuttals for a second. Where we left off was this, I want to think about it. And so if someone's going to say, I want to think about it, it's probably going to be right then and there when you ask for the method of payment. And as Sam alluded to earlier, that's really when the sale begins, guys. At this point, we're order takers. All the way up through this call, we've more or less been an order taker. We're asking for information that we know that they're going to give to us, right? So I want to think about it. I understand that for sure. However, earlier you mentioned that if I answered your questions, recommended a plan to fit your needs and worked within your budget, you'd be able to give me a yes or no. Apparently, I just haven't fulfilled my responsibilities adequately. So let me ask you, have I answered your questions? Okay. See if this gives them an opportunity to ask you what we call the closing questions. Okay. There might be one or two questions that they have left that ultimately they're not going to be able to make a decision on until you answer those questions. So listen for what those questions are and then address them as best that you can. Once you've answered those questions, you immediately redirect. Okay. So don't just answer questions and then sit in silence and wait for them to come up with different responses. Because if you sit there waiting in silence, you're opening up the door for the opportunity for them to say something along the lines of, okay, well, again, thank you so much for the information. I'm gonna take this back to this, that, and the other person. We're gonna talk it over and we're gonna give you a call back. If you could also send this out to me via email, that'd be great. As a salesperson, that is nails on a chalkboard. You start hearing, I want to think this over. I'm going to talk to my husband and I want you to send me an email. Those are three different objections all in one, that now you got to overcome all three of those. But if you answer their questions and then immediately redirect and take back control of the conversation, because when you ask them, did I answer your questions? And they say, well, no, I have some more questions. They're taking control of the conversation right there. So now they're going to be the ones asking the questions and you're going to be the ones answering and waiting for them to come back with another one. The way that you get back in control of the conversation is by you asking the questions. So, you answer that question, we call that rebuttal, redirect. You answer that question, and then you redirect to another question. So, do you feel my recommendation is accurate? Okay, this is trying to get to honesty here. This recommendation of Aetna at $142 a month, do you believe that to be your best option the way that I've told you that it is? Again, listen for the response, address it. If they disagree, what premise do they have for disagreeing? Have they heard about another carrier that maybe offers a lower price? And again, sometimes people hear quotes from carriers that are basically just teaser ads. They're basically a car commercial that tells you that you're going to get a BMW X5 for $399 a month. But then when you read the fine print, it's because you're putting $12,000 down and, you're getting 7,000 miles a year, So there are teaser rates out there that are running on television a lot. And I'm going to speak to both of those right now. One of them is by Colonial Penn. So Colonial Penn loves to run this commercial that you can get final expense insurance for $9.95 a month. What they fail to tell you in the commercial is that more than likely you're probably too old to qualify for that rate. And if you are at the right age to qualify for that rate, they're only going to give you $700 worth of coverage. So yeah, you're going to pay $995 a month for $700 worth of coverage. That's not even going to cover the cost of a casket made out of plywood. So for $700, that's really not going to work. And guys, that's really unfortunately where we're going to have to stop here for the moment, because we've got an appointment here with AIG. You know, we are at the very, very final step. You know, again, we would be completing an echo sign here. If it was a carrier like Mutual of Omaha, we'd be completing just a security question if it was Aetna. Last thing, you know, on the final close, you know, I want to congratulate you on your approval for Aetna. You know, they got the point of sale approval. You know, it's a pleasure to be your agent, not to be redundant, but again, anything you need, you know, please direct any questions to myself. I'm your liaison to this industry. You know, it can get very confusing, and that is where I come into the situation. I'm here to service you and your family at any time. You know, a few things I'd like to ask as favors. You know, please put my cell phone number in your phone. You can save me under Spencer Smith or Spencer Life Insurance Agent. I don't care, as long as you know it's me. If anyone else calls you, please call me back at 954-830-0422 and let me know. You're dealing with me for a reason. I do not want you dealing with anyone else at this point or being harassed by independent agents from certain forms you might have filled out online. Also, if you have any friends or family members that are looking for insurance, I deal with life. I can also, you know, assist with health and Medicare, you know, assuming that you guys have that license as well. Anything you need, you know, please bring it to my attention. I'd be more than happy to help them at any time. Last thing, I've been doing this for a long time. You know, I still ask this every time. On a scale from 1 to 10, how would you grade my presentation, and how would you approve it overall? You know, again, just some feedback for yourself. Let them, you know, toot your own horn a little bit. You know, chances are most people are polite. They're going to give you a 10. And it's just one final kind of send off that really ends the call on a nice note where you get a compliment from them. Great. You know, again, thank you so much for the chance to guide you through this whole process. If you need anything, you know, I'm just a ring away. Have a wonderful day.